What is going on, everyone? Knights here, and welcome back to some Mordhau. As of today, patch number 17 has gone live, and I have to say, guys, very solid first impressions. So we got the Castello map, which is quite grand, and it's a wonderful battlefield. I really think it's a good step in the right direction. I think one of the problems with Fatoria's map design, not that it isn't a good map, it's a very beautiful map as well. But we needed a map that had some more open fighting space, some flat ground, a level playing field essentially, and we got that with Castello. Now there's still some tight quarter areas, but all within reason, and I really enjoyed the map design. As for Mountain Peak, we got an expansion, so the map was essentially doubled from the castle side onward, which is now part of the invasion game mode. Both maps got nobles as well. The Mountain Peak has a single warden that has a war axe and a crossbow, and the Castello map has two nobles, one of which has a maul and one of which has a spear. And the spear one is much more mobile, and the maul guy does more damage, but he's super slow. And you can really see the new momentum mechanics in play when you're playing as the maul guy. It's super slow, and then when you get going, it's almost like a bowling ball. You just keep moving even if you've stopped holding W. And that applies for all classes in the game now, but it's much more subtle, and you won't really even notice it. As for mechanics, I really can't go down the list. I put it up on the screen for you guys, and I'll be linking the patch notes as well in the description. A lot of the main changes happened to the armor and weapon point system. Essentially what happened is the old system was 16 points, and that was multiplied by 3 globally, so the overall point cost went from 16 up to 48. And if you could imagine, all armor pieces, so for example a level 1 helmet is now 3 points, and a level 3 helmet is now 9 points. So everything got multiplied by 3, with the exception of a few things, and this is sort of why they did it in the first place. Leg armor is now disproportionately less expensive than torso and helmet armor, and this is how they're able to fine-tune the balance of the game. And same with weapons. Now war axe and battle axe are the same cost. So I'm just putting out a few examples for you guys to see why they did this. Now I do think there are some concerns around it at this very moment at the release of the patch. I think in a week or two we're going to really have some clarity on what is too OP and if they nailed it on the head or not. But I do have some concerns. I think overall it's a very good step in the right direction with the extended point system. It makes complete sense, and it is much needed to be able to expand the point cost system and be able to fine-tune weapons and weapon balance without actually changing weapon mechanics. And same with the armor system. The armor was desperate for the ability to fine-tune it a bit more, and they're completely dependent on point costs, whereas weapons are a bit more subjective in how well they favor in game. A lot of the single point items stayed at single point items, which is pretty neat, and some of the single point items went up to 2, so that's again disproportionately low. So a lot of those super cheap items got a buff. Bandages are now titled toilet paper, which is pretty funny. But yeah, now they're just 1 point. I think that's kind of like the opposite of what they should have done with bandages. I think bandages have been OP for so long, given that if it scaled correctly it would have been 3 points, and again they didn't scale a lot of the single point things as evenly. So I mean, I don't know exactly what they're going at with some of these changes. That's why we're gonna have to just sit back. But as for a design perspective and cosmetic perspective and mechanics, it seems really solid so far. I think the only thing that is going to resurface in a few weeks will be the point economy system. Perhaps some of these armor and weapon loadout combinations are just going to be too overpowered for how affordable they are. Things got tweaked around for better or for worse. I think it's for better in the long run, and as for how it's going to hold up for now, I think it seems all right. I'm super happy overall, you guys. I think some of these cosmetics are really cool. The spectacles and the eye patch and the hunter's hat, and there wasn't a whole lot of armor, a couple helmets and things like that. I do wish they added some more level 2 armor all around, and there was nothing really that expensive that got released other than the loot skin, and not a whole lot of people are going to be really grinding for that. I mean, I'm sure people are gonna really appreciate the loot skin. But yeah, there weren't a whole lot of super expensive things. I would like to see a full-on gold economy rework. It's not like it's a bad system or anything, but it would be cool if we had a couple of different currencies earned from different game modes and bounties and things like that that incentivize daily or weekly challenges, things like that. So taking a look at some of the mechanics that were added and removed. So as many of you may know, Team Cleave was something that a lot of the community was against, and it was referred to as Team Hit Stop. And now, instead of cleaving through your own teammates, you now get Hit Stop. I believe this is what the game was at release. And after playing it for a couple hours, I definitely think it was the right call. It definitely reduces the amount of team hits, and it makes it really obvious that, like, hey, hitting your own teammates is not good for you or for them. So prior to that, I think the incentive was kind of neutral around just cleaving through your teammate to get kills, and it really is a good change. Another positive change that was made, or at least I believe the majority of the community will see this as a positive change, was the overpower mechanic, which is when you get into a release phase of your riposte, your attack will deflect a lot of incoming strikes, and in theory this sounds nice for 1vx, but in practice it makes the game a bit more inconsistent and perhaps a bit more frustrating than it should be. So they basically have this mechanic still in the game, but it's for shield users only. So their way of combating this and sort of re-adding a pro 1vx mechanic, if you will, back into the game is they added something that is called hyper armor. And what this does is that when you're in your riposte release phase, if you get hit by somebody, previously it was the same, which is you do not get flinch, so nothing changed with that. What happens now is that their attack will no longer cleave you, it will get hit stopped, and will also force a short 300 millisecond lockout from parrying. So it's basically like if they ground feint, so it'll kind of just slow down. They won't be able to combo through you or anything. It'll slow things down, kind of break up the pace of the engagement. I think this will benefit 1vx. The devs think that as well. And they also added riposte no longer clash with non-riposte. I don't know how the weapon physics are going to interact with each other. If they used to be a clash, maybe whichever one is just technically closer will register first. That's what I would guess. Another change that was made is stab feint and stab combo feint windows reduced slightly, and this is very marginal and it's not going to make a huge difference, but stab early release was also increased very slightly, so that almost on the surface sounds like a stab buff, but I haven't done extensive testing on this yet. From what this sounds to me on paper, if you guys could imagine the issue which stems from your stab windup. Basically, if you force your sword through somebody's face and you do a stab windup, or if you're doing a stab feint, there's no real way of being able to read whether that's a stab or not if your sword is sticking through their head. So that was sort of the issue, and this is not going to resolve the issue entirely, but it's putting a band-aid on it for sure. And what this is that it reduces that feint window, so you're not going to be able to do quite as deep of a feint. And on top of that, the release was actually increased on the early end, so that also plays hand in hand to the feint window. You're not going to be able to do as deep of feints when having the sword sticking through their head while in the wind-up phase, and when the stab looks like it's entering release, it's going to more or less enter that release phase sooner now. So if the stab looks like it's in release, it's most likely going to be in release now, whereas previously there were some, when making a distinction between a stab windup and a stab release. So you guys, there were a lot of changes as I mentioned, and there's a lot more that I didn't even get to. As I said, I will be linking the patch notes all over the video. On top of that all, I have a sort of slideshow, if you will, up on the screen throughout this video, so if you want to pause it and read it, you can do it there, but whatever's most convenient for you. One thing that is sort of unfortunate is that modding was removed. I don't know if that was all of modding across the whole game, but yeah, like I said guys, there were a ton of changes that I really can't even get to, just some minor UI tweaks to major changes, as I mentioned. But yeah, definitely read the patch notes, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Nothing seems too unbelievably broken at the moment. I do see that Mace got some random buffs, so we'll have to see what happens there. But yeah, everything's just kind of settling in right now, guys. I'm not going to go as far to make any real opinions or statements about anything. We're really just going to have to sit back and wait a few weeks to really work out the bugs of the meta and sort of exploit the new point system, because I'm sure there's going to be holes, and you know, there's minor issues with the maps like phasing through walls and things like that, but nothing too crazy. There should be a hot fix out in the next few days, I would imagine. Doesn't seem like there's anything too wrong with the mechanics that they implemented, so I think that's really good that the mechanics were pretty rock solid. And you know what, if the real unbalance occurs within weapons being too inexpensive or too expensive, well, I think due to the fact that they changed the point system to 48, that's why they did it. They can fine-tune it with 3 times more accuracy from here on out. I think that was a super good call. Whoever thought of that, kudos to you. And yeah, guys, let me know what you thought of the update if you've been playing it like crazy. I really love it. I think it's all really good stuff. Definitely the best yet. I have to say both new maps are fantastic. They both play really well. The Castello map has just a ton of flat open ground, tons of chaos. So that being said, you guys, I really enjoy the patch. It doesn't seem perfect, but it seems solid, as good as we could really ask for, and they did manage to get it out this week, so kudos to all the devs that worked hard on this patch. I think it looks really nice. Some much needed changes along with some just nice fresh air when it regards to cosmetics and maps, so all around very solid in my opinion. But let me know what you guys think. I really look forward to reading all your comments and feedback about what you think of the patch, and let me know if you guys have discovered anything or any broken loadouts or anything like that. I really look forward to checking that out. And yeah, just stay tuned for class build videos. I'm gonna have to redo those for sure, considering those are all pretty obsolete now, and I will also be coming out with gameplays of the new maps. So thank you guys for dropping by, and I'll catch you very soon.
Are you prepared for a night of feasting and sport, the likes of which you will never forget?